Hey there, everybody. And of course, the minute I decide to do this, there is an airplane that decides to be an asshole outside. But hey, I don't normally do this kind of stuff where I appear on camera, blah blah blah, intro shit. Just a little bit of a kind of a talk thing here and a little bit of promotion. So, anybody who's been on this channel, you've heard my voice before. You've probably seen me on a stream here and there if you're any of the adjoining channels to this one where I have appeared on camera. I'm kind of a average weirdo like a lot of the rest of you. I like to fucking drink. I like my coffee. I like to do these weird YouTube gaming videos with my brother and some of my friends. Just gonna set that bottle down. My workspace is inundated with weird hobby stuff like Godzilla merchandise and ridiculous shit like this, which immediately set itself off when I set it down. So I'm just your average sci-fi fucking fantasy anime occasionally kind of motherfucker, and as unfiltered as I'm ever gonna be. You blame my mother for that, God rest her soul. But here I am, and you are familiar with me to some extent. Part of also phone. My phone hates me, but you've heard that before, so that's part of the channel too, I guess. Between my phone and cats, there you go. Here today, I'm actually here somewhat to talk about this shit that you have seen occasionally pop up. If you've looked at my banner, there's a little thing that links to an Amazon link, says Farvithia Chronicle. Channel's named Farvithian Guard, which is also a reference to this. And what this is, and here I'll see the camera will be friendly with me here. There you go. Yeah, we're gonna do the whole display thing. This is the first of my novels, written solely by me, no ghostwriting. In fact, barely any editing outside myself and a couple of friends who've proofread it for me here and there. And my brother Ed. And as you can see, this is a well-read book. I've actually read my own work. My wife has read it, and a couple other people have borrowed it in the process of making this. This took 2 years to finish writing, because I'm people say they're their own fucking worst critic. It's pretty true in a lot of cases, unless you got some narcissism issues or something, but not my deal. This took a long time to finish. Writing ain't easy. Don't let anybody tell you it is. But part of what I'm here is to talk about this book itself, not just the process of it. And, thank you for my artist, by the way. She's there on the credits. But it's to advertise this book. Now, what this is a fantasy novel. What I'm going to do first off is I'm going to read you the little synopsis here on the back, and then I'll get a little bit more into that. As follows. The pristine lives of Meriden, the young centaur sorceress, and her family are thrown into chaos upon meeting Grayson, a mercenary who has learned of a plot against their home of Glarenfurt. When his allegations are proven correct after their home comes under a brutal attack, they must escape with the mercenary as their home, and their lives are destroyed. Now forced to rely upon the more experienced Grayston, Meriden and her cousins must seek both allies and answers before they can be located by the army that slaughtered their people, or the unknown individuals behind it. Now, that's a basic synopsis, which you gotta do that. So what I wanted to do here is, I grew up on a lot of fantasy and sci-fi stuff, like I said. Fair bit of horror stuff. There's some small elements of that in here, but I didn't try to overplay that. I didn't want to throw off the thematic, theme of the book. And I write better than I talk, so you're going to have to bear with me on that. I'm not much of a presenter. I spent time in the military and doing janitorial jobs, working at a petrol station, and beyond those jobs, military is what I did. And just hobby writing before. I'm sorry, I'm fidgeting with my glasses. I got an itch on my nose. Very unprofessional. There it is. But this is a fantasy novel that amusingly was originally based on some tabletop role-playing game stuff we did. The whole pen, paper, dice, all that good shit. Kind of Matt Mercer turned that into like a huge thing a few years back. For reference, we didn't always do D&D, Pathfinder, Palladium Fantasy, blah blah blah. Whole different story. If anybody wants us to talk about that, we're thinking about doing something with that. But this is the story of two particular characters. Now, what you could consider the main cast is larger than that, because there is Meriden herself, which is our centaur here, our female lead. We have our male lead here, Grayson, who's a former werewolf hunter who turned mercenary for reasons that are explained in the book, so I'm not going to spoil or finagle too much of that. But he's working a caravan. He notices something shady, looks into it, and discovers that it's worse than he thought, and that apparently the target of this caravan's bullshit is this place called Glarenfort, which is the small kingdom where these particular centaurs hail from. Meriden is technically nobility, although she really doesn't act like it. She's more of a tinkerer and a librarian, really. She works with her father, who's a weaponsmith, and her mother, who is literally the librarian of the Grand Archives, which is basically the Royal Library. So these are people who they've fought in one war since the formation of their kingdom, and they are woefully unprepared for anything really major. No one's expecting anything. They have an army, they have a guard force, which, could basically be defined in this era as like their police force. They're the guardsmen. Any fantasy town you've seen, they have guards, and then they have actual military force for wartime kind of thing. Separate entity, but connected. Basic stuff. I'm not going to get too much into that. Logistics. But her cousins are both members of the guard. Her aunt is the captain of the town guard, so there's a whole familial thing with them. But Grayston gets in there to the camp because they left and made camp just to get away from home for a little while. He meets them, manages to halfway convince them that something's going wrong. They run ahead, he follows them. And in the process of Captain Kyrith, who is Meriden's aunt, not believing half of what they're saying, they do convince him to conduct an investigation, which does lead them to find out there have been some acts of sabotage, which, as they're trying to resolve that, it comes to a head when this pushes the timetable ahead for the faction who's arranged the sabotage, which leads to all-out combat and invasion, which was basically waiting to happen, the kidnapping of the monarchs, and a whole lot of other shit, to the point that something, which I again will not spoil, happens which escalates the situation exponentially and forces an evacuation of this kingdom. So what this means is that these characters, who have rarely been outside apart from maybe 15-20 miles from home, are now being forced to flee. A group of them, Meriden, her cousins, and her aunt, with this mercenary who they've only just met, and their aunt, who is inherently distrustful of mercenaries as a guardsman, doesn't have a good experience with them. Now they have to follow this guy they barely know. And this escalates into things. And there are initially what appear to be two separate contingents. It's not quite the word I'm looking for, but two separate groups of these other mercenaries who have staged the invasion. They've broken in. They've killed the countless centaurs and anyone else in the city who was acting as defenders or military. This ambush basically let them in. There are two very unnatural commanders of this force. Again, the element I will not specifically spoil. But this is not even a massive plot spoiler. This is the beginning of the book. There is build-up which explains a little bit of what Glarenfort is, who Meriden and Grayston and Meriden's cousins are, and a general purpose. So there is a little bit of a build-up. But when things start, then they don't stop from there. It's all out to the escape, and from there, home is gone. So these characters are unmoored. They are unwillingly unshackled from their lives, and now everything is complete unknown to them. And that's the base premise of the book, is that these characters now are forced, with the exception of Grayston, who's already been out there, to travel all over a world they barely know, trying to find any information, any answers to what has happened to their home, what has happened to their people, trying to find allies who might be able to help them if they do find the answers, and trying to potentially evade whoever it was that attacked them. because they don't have any idea if this military force is still looking for them. And this leads them literally into several parts of the world, across the sea to a continent they barely even heard of. There's a lot of reveals about the characters' backgrounds and personalities. I've tried to put a good amount of writing in this day and age, which disturbs me as someone who used to love movies and books. That character development seems to fall to the wayside so often to give characters defining traits that these writers think are important but don't really define anything. Well, the personality is lost in a lot of cases to show they're a strong woman, they're a strong this, or a strong that, or they're this race or that race, and those serve a purpose, but they're not a driving force. They're not meant to be a character-defining trait, which drove me nuts. So I tried to write to remedy that in my own case. I wanted to write something that had more meaning behind the characters. I want to make you care about these characters if you have taken the time to read this book. So I put a fair amount of time into that, I think. And my brother and I busted our butts to get this edited, go through the printing process, go through the very particular process of making sure your margins and all this shit we'd not even conceived of before. And to get this out into people's hands, it is available also in ebook form, which is for some people going to be an easier read or an easier price. This is only just a couple bucks over $20 right now. This, because this is not a small book, and just to give you an idea, this is not exactly in large print either. So there's a lot of material in this book. There's a full story in here. I put an ending with, considering I am already writing the next one, and there's going to be at least 2, if not 3. In this series. But this book does have an end point. It doesn't completely cliffhanger you, because I didn't want to, for lack of a better term, I didn't want to pull a George R.R. Martin and leave something unfinished for years and years and years. So there is an end point to this. It doesn't give you all the answers, but it ends where it would make sense for this story here to end and another one to pick up with these characters still connected to these events. I'm not going to talk your fucking ear off about this all day, but I want to give a little bit more of an idea of what this is, what it means, what it's about, and just a general idea and a little bit of a rare talk about myself and the work that I'm doing on the side apart from this channel here, which I love doing this shit. We do it purely for entertainment. No monetization. It'll be a cold day in hell, like I've said, if I get monetized on this platform. But that's it for me. Hope somebody happens to watch this. If you do, hey, click it, like it, whatever. Check out my book. It's on the front page banner. It's on Amazon. Just look up the Farvithia Chronicle. It is right here if you need to see how to spell it. There it is. And I'm out of here. You folks have a great fucking day.